You know, life has a way of teaching us what really matters, often in the quiet moments, those moments when no one's watching, when there's no applause, no spotlight, no pressure to perform. And love, real love, is exactly like that. It reveals itself not through grand speeches or perfect lines, but through small, consistent actions, especially the ones you never had to ask for. Tonight, I want to talk about what a man does when he truly loves you, not in theory, but in practice. And while people often list a dozen traits or promises, I've found that there are 5 powerful behaviors that show up again and again. 5 things that don't need prompts, reminders, or requests. They're simply there because real love moves on its own. There's something special about the way real love shows up. Not because it's convenient, not because it's expected, but because it feels like the most natural thing in the world. When a man truly cares, he doesn't drift in and out of your life like a passing shadow. He becomes a steady presence, not loud, not demanding, just there, in the moments when it matters and in the moments when no one else would even think to look your way. Consistency is one of the purest forms of love, and it's often misunderstood. People think it means showing up every single day with grand gestures or perfectly spoken words, but that's not it. True consistency is quieter. It's found in the everyday decisions, the unspoken choices, the small acts that whisper, "You matter to me." It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up even when it's inconvenient, even when life gets messy, even when comfort would be easier than commitment. Think about someone who has ever truly cared for you in your life. Maybe a partner, maybe a close friend, maybe even a family member who was always there. What made their presence meaningful wasn't that they had all the answers or knew how to fix everything. It was the simple fact that they didn't disappear when things got hard. They didn't choose silence when you needed support. They didn't wait for the perfect moment to help. They created the moment by stepping forward. A man who loves you doesn't make you wonder where you stand. You don't have to chase him for attention, affection, or reassurance. You don't have to decode mixed signals or read between the lines of empty promises. When he loves, truly loves, his actions become aligned with his heart, and his heart chooses you, not only on the bright days, but especially on the ones when the world feels heavy. There's a story about a woman who was going through one of the toughest seasons of her life, losing a job, taking care of a sick parent, barely keeping her head above water. She later said she barely had time to breathe, much less ask anyone for help. But the man she loved didn't wait for directions or invitations. He showed up at her door with groceries. He helped her make calls. He sat with her in silence when her emotions were too tangled to untie. He didn't ask, "What do you need?" because sometimes people don't know how to answer that. Instead, he saw the weight and did what he could to lighten it. That's consistency. That's love, choosing presence over perfection. When someone cares for real, they don't keep score. They don't only appear when the timing suits them. They don't vanish when responsibility knocks. They understand that love isn't just the highlight reel. It's the behind the scenes moments too. It's checking in after a long day, remembering the things that worry you, showing up to celebrate your wins even when they're small, and standing beside you when the world feels uncertain. There's a quiet strength in a man who keeps showing up without being asked. It means his commitment isn't conditional. It isn't dependent on mood, convenience, or circumstance. It's rooted in respect and intention. And intention is everything. You can hear 1,000 beautiful words, but intention is what gives them meaning. When love is real, showing up doesn't feel like an obligation. It feels like a privilege. There's a tenderness in being present for someone you cherish, in supporting them through the everyday storms and soft moments alike. Love notices when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, when you're pretending to be okay, and instead of stepping back, it steps closer, not to fix you, but to stand with you. And maybe that's the most powerful part of all. Real love doesn't wait to be instructed, reminded, or persuaded. It moves with purpose. It recognizes what matters. It knows that consistency is the foundation upon which trust is built. And trust, true, deep trust, isn't forged in grand gestures. It's built brick by brick, moment by moment, presence by presence. A man who shows up consistently isn't performing, he's choosing. He's choosing you, not because he has to, because he wants to. There's a kind of love that doesn't just guard your body, but guards your spirit. It doesn't just step between you and danger. It steps between you and the things that quietly wear you down. And when a man truly loves you, he understands that protecting your peace is just as important as protecting your safety, maybe even more, because safety is about the moment, but peace is about your whole life. Protecting your peace means he cares not only about what happens to you, but about how you feel, how you carry things, how you navigate the world when no one else is paying attention. It's a deeper kind of protection, not the dramatic, heroic kind people glorify in movies, but the kind that shows up in the quiet corners of everyday life, the kind that takes awareness, patience, empathy, and a whole lot of intention. There's a gentleness in it, but also a strength. A man who protects your peace isn't passive or detached. He's present. He notices when you're overwhelmed, even when you're trying to hide it behind a brave smile. He pays attention to the way your voice softens when you're tired, or the way you go quiet when something weighs on your mind. He doesn't interrogate you or push you to open up before you're ready. He simply creates space, safe, calm, steady space, so you can breathe again. I knew someone once who said the quietest love she ever received was from a partner who understood her anxiety without needing her to explain it every time. She'd had a long day and came home exhausted, but instead of asking her what was wrong or demanding her energy when she didn't have any left, he just wrapped her in a soft blanket, handed her a cup of tea, and sat beside her. Not talking, not prying, just being there, peacefully. And in that silence, she felt protected, she felt valued, she felt understood. That's what it looks like when a man protects your peace. Sometimes protecting your peace means he chooses kindness over ego. That's a huge thing, because in many relationships, arguments become battles and pride becomes a weapon. But when a man genuinely loves you, he doesn't let anger take the wheel. He doesn't raise his voice to overpower you or use silence to punish you. He doesn't twist your words or make you feel small just so he can feel big. He recognizes that conflict isn't a war to win. It's a moment to understand each other. Imagine this, you're frustrated, emotional, maybe even saying things with more heat than clarity. Instead of matching your intensity, he listens. He breathes, he grounds himself, and when he speaks, it's calm. Not because he's avoiding the issue, but because he respects you enough to protect the energy between you. He respects the relationship enough to keep it safe, even in the storm. That's a man who understands peace. He knows that harsh words can last longer than any argument, so he chooses gentleness. And that gentleness becomes your refuge. Protecting your peace also means he supports your boundaries, not grudgingly, not with guilt trips, but with understanding. Maybe you need alone time to recharge. Maybe you don't like certain kinds of environments. Maybe your past experiences make some things harder for you. Whatever it may be, he doesn't shame you for it. He doesn't call you dramatic or sensitive. He doesn't make you apologize for your emotional needs. Instead, he stands with you. He supports you. He adapts when necessary. Because he knows your boundaries aren't walls. They're the fences that keep your inner world safe. And he wants to be on the right side of those fences, not tearing them down. When a man protects your peace, He takes your emotional comforts seriously. He treats your feelings like something valuable, not something inconvenient. There's a story about a couple who went to a gathering. The woman was introverted and easily overwhelmed by large crowds, but she didn't want to disappoint anyone. As the room got louder and the energy more chaotic, she felt her chest tighten. Without her saying a word, her partner gently squeezed her hand and whispered, "Wants to step outside for a bit?" They walked out together into the cool night air. He didn't make a big deal out of it. He didn't tease her. He just understood. And she said later that this simple act meant more to her than any romantic gesture he'd ever made, because he protected her peace right when she needed it most. A man who values your peace also takes responsibility for his own energy. He doesn't dump his frustrations on you like you're a container to fill. He doesn't storm through the house angry because he had a bad day. He doesn't make you carry the emotional weight he refuses to deal with. Instead, he handles his emotions with maturity, communicates with honesty, and approaches the relationship with grounding. He knows that two people can share burdens, but not at the cost of each other's well-being. And sometimes protecting your peace means he protects the relationship from outside influences, not in a controlling way, but in a respectful, mindful way. Maybe he keeps certain conversations private. Maybe he doesn't let others speak poorly about you. Maybe he sets boundaries with people who bring negativity into your life. He makes it clear through actions, not declarations, that the connection between you is something worth guarding. What makes all of this so beautiful is that he does it without needing to be asked. You won't have to explain why you're drained before he softens his tone. You won't have to tell him to respect your boundaries before he honors them. You won't have to ask him to calm the storm before he becomes the calm. He simply acts out of love, out of awareness, out of a desire to be a source of peace, not pressure. Because real love isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention or create chaos just to feel alive. Real love steadies you. It holds you softly in the world's noise. It gives you space to breathe, to feel, to rest. It gives you permission to be human without fear of judgment. When a man protects your peace, not just your safety, he's telling you in every quiet action, your heart matters to me. Your mind matters to me. Your comfort matters to me. And that kind of protection, it's rare. It's quiet, but it's powerful. It's the kind you feel long after the moment has passed. It's the kind that reminds you what love is supposed to feel like. There's something incredibly moving about the way real love pays attention, not in a flashy, dramatic way, and not in a way that tries to impress anyone. It's quieter than that, softer, almost invisible if you're not looking closely. But when a man truly loves you, he notices things, small things, delicate things, the tiny pieces of your world that many people overlook. And it's in those little details that his love quietly reveals itself. He pays attention to the details that matter, not because he's trying to score points, not because he's trying to be perfect, but because something in him genuinely cares. It's like he's tuned into the subtle frequencies of your life, the way your eyes light up when you talk about something you're passionate about, the way your voice shifts when you're tired, the way you twist your fingers when you're anxious. These little signals are like constellations to him. They guide him, they help him understand you, and they make him want to show up for you in the most sincere way possible. There's a gentleness in that kind of attention. It's not surveillance, it's not control, it's not obsession. It's presence, pure presence. You can see it in the way he remembers things you don't even remember saying. Maybe you mentioned in passing that you love a particular song from your childhood. A week later, it's playing softly in the car as he drives you home. You didn't ask, you didn't hint, there's no performance about it, he just listened. And he held on to it because it mattered to you, and that makes it matter to him. Sometimes paying attention means he sees the things you're trying to hide, not because you're being dishonest, but because you've learned to carry so much on your own that it's become second nature. Maybe you say, "I'm fine," but your shoulders tell a different story. Maybe you smile, but it doesn't quite reach your eyes. And he doesn't push you to talk. He doesn't pressure you to open up before you're ready. Instead, he gives you the kind of space that feels safe. He might make you a warm drink, or sit beside you in silence, or place a gentle hand on your back. Small gestures that say, "I see you." You don't have to explain anything. There was a woman who once said that the most meaningful thing her partner ever did wasn't buying her a gift or planning a big surprise. It was something simple. She'd been working long hours and skipping meals without realizing it. One evening, she came home exhausted and he greeted her with a bowl of her favorite soup. When she asked why, he said, "You always skip lunch on days like this. I don't want you going to bed hungry." That moment broke her open, because it wasn't about the soup. It was about being seen, being understood, being cared for in a way that didn't require a blueprint. Paying attention to the details that matter also shows up in the way he remembers the rhythm of your life. Maybe he knows you like your coffee a certain way, not because you told him, but because he noticed the little changes you make when you think no one is watching. Maybe he pays attention to the things that overwhelm you so he can shield you from some of them without you needing to ask. Maybe he remembers the important dates in your life, not just birthdays and holidays, but the anniversary of a loss, or the day you conquered a fear, or the moment you achieved something you'd worked hard for. He celebrates the quiet victories with you, the ones you might even downplay. He'll say something like, "I know that presentation was hard for you. I'm proud of you." Or, "I noticed how patient you were with that situation. You handled it beautifully." These aren't rehearsed lines. They're reflections of how deeply he pays attention to who you are, not just what you do. There's also something incredibly comforting about the way he anticipates your needs without making you feel helpless. He won't take over your life or make decisions for you, but he'll notice when you're stretching yourself too thin and gently encourage you to rest. He'll see when you're trying to hide stress and offer a moment of relief. He'll sense when you need laughter and try to bring it into the room, or when you need quiet and choose not to fill the space with words. And this kind of attention, this thoughtful, intentional awareness, creates something powerful. Ease, not the complacent kind, but the kind that lets you breathe a little deeper. The kind that makes you feel like you don't have to perform or pretend or armor yourself all the time. Being with someone who pays attention to the details that matter feels like finally being able to relax your shoulders after holding them tight for years. Sometimes the details he notices are things you didn't even realize were important. Maybe he catches the hesitation in your voice when you talk about a friend who drains your energy. Maybe he sees the way your face softens when you talk about your dreams, even the ones you think are unrealistic. He'll pay attention to the way you choose your words, the stories you tell, the memories you cherish, and even the ones you avoid. All of it paints a picture for him, and he takes the time to understand it. When a man loves you this way, he learns your emotional language. He learns what makes you feel valued, what makes you feel secure, what makes you feel seen, and he doesn't use that knowledge to manipulate or control. He uses it to love you better. Maybe one of the most beautiful things about this kind of attention is that it doesn't demand anything in return. He's not keeping track. He's not waiting for applause. He's not tallying up gestures or expecting you to notice every little thing he does. He pays attention because it feels natural, because it's who he becomes when he loves deeply. In a world where so many people listen just enough to respond, just enough to get by, it's rare to find someone who listens to understand, someone who observes with kindness, someone who remembers not to impress, but to honor who you are. And when you experience that, when you're with someone who truly pays attention to the details that matter, you realize that love doesn't always need grand moments or dramatic gestures. Sometimes the real magic is in the quiet noticing, the soft awareness, the tender, consistent attention that tells you, without words, you are worth understanding. You are worth remembering. You are worth the details. There's something profoundly beautiful about being loved by someone who isn't intimidated by your evolution. Someone who doesn't cling to the version of you that feels safe or predictable, but instead embraces the unfolding of who you're becoming. Even when that journey challenges him, stretches him, or stirs up fears he never had to confront before. When a man truly loves you, he supports your growth, even when it scares him. And that kind of love, it's rare, it's brave, it's selfless in a way most people never experience. Because growth isn't always gentle, it's not always soft or poetic. Sometimes growth looks like late nights, tough decisions, shedding old habits, releasing old versions of yourself, or stepping into dreams that require you to be more than you ever thought you could be. And when someone loves you, watching you rise can stir up a mix of emotions: pride, admiration, excitement, but also fear. Fear of losing the familiar, fear of losing time, fear of losing connection, fear of not being enough for the new version of you. But a man who loves you in a real, grounded way doesn't let that fear turn into resistance. He doesn't pull you back so he can stay comfortable. He doesn't ask you to shrink so he won't feel small. He doesn't tether you to who you used to be because it feels easier for him. Instead, he opens space for your growth, even when it invites changes he can't fully predict. Maybe you decide to go back to school. Maybe you suddenly realize you want something different from life. Maybe you start healing from old wounds and discovering patterns that no longer serve you. Maybe you begin to believe you're capable of more, and you start acting on it. He sees that spark inside you, and even if it shakes the foundation of what he's used to, he leans into it. He supports you. He cheers for you. He holds space for your fears and your excitement. He asks questions, not to doubt you, but to understand you. And even when it's hard for him, especially when it's hard, he chooses love over fear. I once heard a woman talk about how her partner reacted when she got an opportunity to take a job in another city. It was a dream position, one she'd worked toward for years, but accepting it would mean long distance for a while and completely rearranging what they'd built together. She expected him to resist or feel threatened, but instead he said, "You have to do this. You've earned it, and I'll figure out everything else with you." He had no idea what the future would look like, no assurance of how things would work out, but his love wasn't rooted in possession. It was rooted in belief. In her, in them, in the idea that relationships expand when people do. That's what supporting growth looks like. It may not always be easy, it may not always be smooth, but it's grounded in the understanding that loving someone isn't about keeping them within reach. It's about walking beside them as they stretch into their potential. Sometimes supporting your growth means he challenges you in a loving way. He might remind you of your strengths when you doubt yourself. He might push you gently when you're settling for less than you deserve. He might hold you accountable in the moments when fear tries to shrink you, not because he wants to control you, but because he sees the fire in you and respects it too much to let you dim it. He's the one who says, "I know this scares you, but I've seen what you can do," or "You're capable of more than you think," or "I'm here, go for it." Those are the kinds of words that water someone's spirit, the kind that make you feel unstoppable because you know someone believes in you without conditions or limits. And sometimes supporting your growth means he grows with you. He doesn't stay stagnant or stuck. He doesn't resent your progress. He doesn't view your evolution as a threat. Instead, he lets your expansion inspire his own. He looks at you becoming more and thinks, maybe I can be more too. Your journey becomes a shared, rising, not in the same direction, not at the same pace, but in a way that keeps your spirits aligned. There's also a quiet courage in the way he adapts. Growth means change, and change often disrupts routines, expectations, comfort zones. But he doesn't cling to the old dynamics simply because they feel familiar. He adjusts. He learns new ways of loving you as you grow. He updates his understanding of who you are. He respects your evolution because he loves your essence, not just your current shape. Supporting growth sometimes means giving you space, real space, the kind that lets you think, breathe, experiment, fail, try again. He doesn't smother you with demands or take your focus personally. He knows your ambition or healing or self-discovery isn't a rejection of him, it's a fulfillment of you, and he wants that for you, even if it means sharing your attention with your dreams. One woman once said that she knew her partner truly loved her when she told him she needed time alone to figure out who she was becoming, and instead of panicking or trying to hold on to her, he simply said, "I'll be right here when you want to talk. Take what you need." That kind of response requires emotional maturity. It requires understanding that love doesn't crumble when someone grows. It deepens. Supporting your growth also means he doesn't minimize your ambitions. He doesn't say things like, "Are you sure you can handle that?" Or "Maybe you're taking on too much," when those words come from his insecurity instead of genuine concern. Instead, he speaks to you with respect. He treats your dreams as valid. He listens when you talk about your future with excitement. He shows pride when you achieve even the small steps, because he knows every step matters. He celebrates you not for who he wants you to be, but for who you are becoming. And here's the truth about this kind of love. It takes humility. It takes strength. It takes emotional bravery. Because watching someone grow means accepting that life will shift, dynamics will evolve, and nothing stays perfectly predictable. But a man who loves you authentically isn't in love with predictability. He's in love with you. And he knows growth is part of loving a human being who is alive, changing, learning, transforming. Supporting your growth, even when it scares him, is one of the purest signs of love, because it asks him to put your well-being above his comfort. It asks him to trust the bond you share. It asks him to choose belief over fear. And when he does that, when he stands beside you through the uncertainty, cheering you on while steadying himself, he becomes a partner in the truest sense, not someone who holds you back, someone who helps you rise. And that kind of love, that's the kind you can build a lifetime with. Courage is a certain kind of courage in a man who chooses honesty even when the truth feels heavy, uncomfortable, or risky. It's not flashy courage, the kind people cheer for. It's quieter. It lives in the pauses, in the deep breaths, in the moments when he could take the easy way out but chooses not to. When a man truly loves you, he understands that honesty is not just a virtue, it's a foundation. And he values that foundation because he values you. Honesty, especially the difficult kind, is an act of love. It's a promise that he will not protect himself at the cost of your trust. It's a commitment to transparency, even when the truth requires vulnerability, his or yours. And there is something profoundly intimate about that. It means he's willing to be seen, not as a polished version of himself, but as a real human being, flawed, learning, trying, sometimes afraid, but always choosing integrity over convenience. There's this idea that love grows in the beautiful moments, but the truth is that love deepens in the hard conversations, in the moments where it would be so easy to stay silent, so easy to pretend, so easy to gloss over something and hope it resolves itself. But he doesn't do that. He respects you too much to let small cracks turn into deep fractures. Maybe he's had a rough day and his mind is somewhere else. Instead of shutting you out, instead of letting you guess or feel responsible, he tells you the truth. I'm overwhelmed right now. It's not you. I just need a moment to decompress. That kind of honesty keeps you from carrying burdens that were never yours to hold. It prevents confusion. It creates clarity, because guesswork is exhausting. Uncertainty breeds self-doubt. Silence can feel like rejection, but honesty, gentle, transparent honesty, keeps the connection safe. It keeps the relationship grounded in mutual respect. There was a couple once who talked about how honesty saved their relationship, not in a dramatic movie-style revelation, but in small, everyday truths. The woman said she always felt anxious in relationships because she'd been with people who hid things, avoided conflict, or told half-truths to keep the peace. But her partner was different. When something bothered him, he didn't lash out or retreat. He expressed it calmly. When he was hurt, he didn't punish her. He shared it. When he made a mistake, he didn't cover it up. He owned it. And in that honesty, she felt safe for the first time in years. It wasn't that he never messed up. It was that he refused to lie about it. A man who chooses honesty, even when it's hard, understands that trust is fragile. He knows that once broken, it's complicated to rebuild. So he protects it, not with perfection, but with truth. And that truth isn't always easy. Sometimes honesty requires admitting fears or insecurities he wishes he didn't have. Sometimes it requires confessing when he fell short or when he reacted poorly. Sometimes it requires acknowledging feelings he didn't expect: jealousy, worry, doubt, protectiveness, vulnerability. Opening up in that way takes bravery. It requires peeling back layers he may have spent years building, but he does it because he knows intimacy and honesty walk hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. And honesty isn't just about confessing hard truths. It's about being transparent about desires, boundaries, dreams, and intentions. It's about saying, "This is who I am," instead of showing only what he thinks you want to see. It's about letting you in, allowing you to know him, not the mask, not the curated image, but the real person underneath. Sometimes honesty is as simple as admitting, "I'm scared," or "I'm still healing from things I don't talk about often," or "I need reassurance right now, even though I usually seem strong." These confessions carry weight. They show humility. They create space for deeper emotional connection. When a man can share his truth without fear of judgment, he invites you to share yours too. And that mutual vulnerability becomes the heartbeat of the relationship. There's also a kind of honesty that protects the relationship from misunderstandings. Instead of assuming, instead of jumping to conclusions, he communicates. If something feels off, he asks. If he's unsure about something, he seeks clarity. He doesn't let resentment build quietly in the background. He doesn't let doubts multiply in silence. He talks, even when talking feels uncomfortable. He listens, even when listening requires patience. And honesty isn't always about sharing difficult emotions. Sometimes it's about speaking love openly, saying, "I appreciate you," or "I'm proud of you," or "I love the way you handle things." Being honest in affection can be just as challenging as being honest about fears. But he doesn't hold back. He lets you know how he feels because he understands that unspoken love often goes unheard. What makes this kind of honesty so powerful is that it creates a relationship where both people can exhale. There's no walking on eggshells, no decoding mixed signals, no worrying about hidden motives. You can trust his words because you know he's not giving you a filtered version of himself. He's giving you the truth. And the truth, even when it's hard, builds emotional safety. It builds intimacy. It builds longevity. Sometimes choosing honesty means he risks upsetting you, but he'd rather face a moment of discomfort than create a future of distrust. Sometimes he tells you something that's difficult to hear, not harshly, not carelessly, but with compassion, because he knows authenticity strengthens the bond, and he hopes you'll trust him enough to hear his heart behind the words. Honesty is a gift, a rare one, a fragile one. But when a man chooses it consistently, it becomes a powerful expression of love. It shows he doesn't just want a relationship that looks good, he wants one that is good, one that lasts, one that grows, one that stays solid even when life throws storms your way. A man who chooses honesty even when it's hard isn't just telling the truth. He's telling you that he values the connection more than his comfort. He's telling you that your heart matters, your trust matters, your peace matters. He's telling you in the most human way possible that love is not about avoiding difficulty. It's about facing it together. And in a world full of half-truths, silence, and emotional shortcuts, that kind of honesty becomes a shelter, a place you can rest in, a place you can trust. It becomes the kind of love that feels steady, the kind that feels real, the kind that feels like home. Real love isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't wait for you to beg for the bare minimum. It nurtures. It shows. These 5 behaviors may seem simple, but they form the foundation of something unbreakable. Because a man who loves you doesn't just say it. He proves it every day without you asking. In the right one will make it feel effortless.